What's up guys? Today we have another image sent in by Simon here, so his details will be down in the description. If you guys want to go give him a follow, do that down there. And we are working with this image right here, trying to recreate the creamy, awesome edit that he achieves. So let's get into Lightroom. Here's the image from his Instagram and the raw unedited file. So first things first, I'm gonna really bump up that warmth. Drop exposure, then lift up some highlights a little, so what I see is he's got quite dark blacks. In the darkest areas it's quite dark, so I'm going to really drop the blacks. And then if you look in areas such as this, where it's more the shadows, he doesn't have many shadows there, so I'm going to lift up the shadows. And right, so that leaves quite a bit of contrast, but we will soften it up with the curve here. And before we do that, his images are quite creamy, so dropping clarity and saturation for now. Right, so the contrast looks a little harsh at the moment, so going to soften it out with the S-curve. Okay, so I think that looks better, and what I want to do is just darken the bottom. I think that's kind of obvious. And drop those blacks. Cool, happy with that for now. Split toning, gonna chuck some in the highlights. And then, since our image looks a little too warm now, some blue in the shadows. So if you keep your eye down there, it's going to really cool off the shadows and complement those highlights. Okay, so do some HSL, I think. And later on, it's quite obvious we're going to do some brushing over the subject and over a few other areas of the image, so don't worry about that just yet. Actually, to see what we want to do, we kind of need to brush these areas. So brush, everywhere we want brighter, bring up the exposure. Now let's go back to our colors. So as you can see, the yellows, most of them are out the back there, and they obviously look a little more orange. The greens, I think, are looking a little too warm. If you look right here, right there, I could bring them this way. I'm just going to drop the luminance of the greens, because as you can see, it makes them much deeper and can kind of change the color a little. Okay, we've got a tiny bit of blues here, and up in the corner I think they look much more teal. Saturation of these yellows, bring them up. Bringing down the greens. I'll bring down the blues because we don't have many up in the corners in his image, so I'm going to bring them down. And then probably brush over these blues later. Right, luminance. So the dress here, want to brighten it up a bit. Looks about right. And I might just bring up the exposure for our subject here. Okay, so we want to start doing some brushing and really bringing out the rest of the image. So as you can see, we need to brighten up this area. It will help the image look a little more symmetrical. Okay. And then I want to brush on this bit of blue right here. I think it really adds to the image right next to the reds. So I want to bring in more color, but remember we had too many blues up the top there, and he hasn't enabled profile corrections. So I'm going to add in some blues this way. bit more of a green or teal. So drop in the the tint. Maybe even brighten it up a bit. Okay. And I want to maybe get rid of the top of the image. Probably don't need to do this, but it's kind of distracting having things near the edges of the frame. So I might take away these dark spots and bits of color up the top here by getting rid of the blues with some warmth and getting rid of the little bit of dark spots with some exposure. Okay, so we're pretty close, just need to do some touching up, maybe a bit less saturation for the skin tones. A bit more contrast for our subject. So low contrast, high amount of contrast. And a few more whites just to help it pop a little more. Maybe drop the luminance of the reds a little. And I might a little bit more contrast there into the shadows. I want to do a brush to just enhance the subject a little more. Contrast and touch of whites again. combine that with dropping the luminance. I think we could lose some saturation. We'll bump up the shadows a bit. And I think that looks alright, guys. So yeah, if you guys want to comment down below who you guys want to see, that way I can reach out to them on Instagram and ask them to send in a photo, that way I can do a tutorial on them. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what I could improve on in these videos, and I'll be catching you in the next one.